liberals, conservatives, black, white, old, young. They know it's tyranny. They know George Bush wants to be a dictator, and people are waking up everywhere. Be part of history, educate yourselves on the facts, research the truth, and then get out there and speak out to everyone.
Paul, it's a pleasure. Pierre, it's a pleasure to meet you, sir. My friend here, he tells me that you were at Ground Zero. Is there anything in particular that you'd like to tell us that hasn't been heard from or ignored with the mainstream media? That's my particular interest, and I think a lot of people's particular interest.
I arrived there about 3 o'clock in the afternoon on the day of September 11th, 2001, in the capacity of a DART team member, a disaster action response team member. At the time, I was with the American Red Cross, and that was my capacity. I went in there, I couldn't find anybody from Red Cross, so I went right to the pile, and I was working on the corner of Vesey and West Street down in the general area. I don't know how familiar you are with Vesey and West.
Vaguely. I've been to Ground Zero. I'm not very familiar with some of the streets.
The Building is on the side of the Hudson, on the west side of West Street. The footbridge that had connected the tower, the North Tower, to the American Express Building was collapsed across West Street. Right. And that's basically where I started my deployment. And I worked for the first 50 hours non-stop, just around the clock, working the pile, basically coordinating the heavy equipment to pull material off the pile and try to sift through the debris.
Well, God bless you. Thank you for trying to do it.
It was a horrible event. We were talking about Building 7 as I saw his sign, Investigate 9/11, and you know, there's no question that Building 7 was a planned demolition. There's no question about that in my mind. I've been building buildings, commercial buildings, for 25 years. I have some background with Uncle Sam with explosives. Building 7 fell on its own footprint. The post office building to the east of it and the Verizon building to the west of it, virtually unscathed by 7, which fell literally in its own footprint and spilled out onto Vesey Street. It was just, you know, they said to us that we had to pull back at about 4:30, saying that 7 was going to fall. But we could see 7 from where we were standing, and I could see on the southeast corner, maybe 30 stories up, some smoke involving probably two floors, just in the far corner. Smoke coming from the building. Structurally, that building was erect. It was fine. You know, it had some holes in it, you know, but nothing that was structurally compromising its overall integrity. And yet, like clockwork, they pull us back, and 45 minutes later, the thing falls in place.
Yeah, there were reports from Barry Jennings. I don't know if you heard of his reports. He worked for the Department of Emergency Management, I believe it's called, and they had a special office up there, and he witnessed explosions within the building before either of the towers had collapsed inside World Trade 7.
They pulled us back, so I can't speak to that. I know. I did see the result, and the result was a drop of a building that had been structurally sound, in my view, as a building. Only 45 minutes before, and then all of us were dumbfounded by the declaration that it was going to collapse. It just didn't seem probable to us. In addition to that, I personally deployed the Army Corps of Engineers because they had no job. The end of the second day, they were still twiddling their thumbs, and yet they had their instruments available, their transits, etc. And I asked them if they could deploy on the surrounding buildings because we were in fear that those buildings were unstable. I told the mayor's office that we were doing 15-minute intervals of monitoring those structures, keeping our instruments on them on 15-minute intervals. The mayor's emergency manager didn't even concern himself with that, despite the fact that several times we were all told we had to run for our lives. 4,000 workers run for our lives because there was an imminent threat of one of the adjacent abutting buildings collapsing. Once we put the instruments on there, we knew for a fact that that wasn't the case, but they refused to disseminate that information to the rest of the workers on the site and out to the public that should have known and should have been told that those of us that were working on the ground were safe from other buildings collapsing, because it was clear that we had established that they were not fluctuating and that they were structurally sound.
Right.
They didn't disseminate that. Why? I don't know why. Did they want to keep us afraid of an imminent threat of additional collapse of other buildings? I don't understand.
Well,
I don't understand.
Maybe if they figured that was okay, then maybe they'd have to go on to more pressing issues like the air quality, which they wanted to ignore.
Look, we were down there, we did the best we could with masks, you know, dust masks, particulate masks, etc. But at the end of the day, you know, you were overwhelmed. The dust, the heat, you know, it was...
The first responders are still being affected by it.
Absolutely. I mean, they do a follow-up with us with Mount Sinai, and it's it's a great program, it's a solid program, and they're very thorough. But, you know, clearly the kind of stuff that was burning down there in what some of us referred to as hell, the volcano, the pit, you know, it burned and burned and burned. I was there for a week, it was still molten when I left.
So you witnessed the molten metal or heard stories of it?
Down in the pit, it was like standing near a volcano.
Yeah, I've got some papers that I'd love to give you. There's a report, a peer-reviewed science report proving they've analyzed the dust samples. I don't know if you've heard about it, but they've found a thermitic residue within the dust. It's basically a high military-grade explosive residue.
I have heard that.
And there are also strange connections between government agencies within that have the capability of producing this type of technology. I mean, it's it's amazing.
Regrettably, people made money on that.
Yeah.
Somebody knew it was coming. I'm not suggesting that our government was intimately involved in the actual activity, but they
I just want answers.
They knew.
Oh yeah.
Someone knew, and there were those that took advantage of the imminent threat and profited from it. Yeah. That's clearly the case. I'd like to know who put shorts on, you know?
Oh yeah.
Who put shorts on American and United the day of and the day before and profited?
Why weren't the planes stopped? You know, I mean, they say, oh, well, the war games and military exercises.
Why did Building 7, a Class A structure, steel and concrete, fall from a small fire up on 30?
Well, thank you for bringing that to the attention of the American people, because a lot of people won't.
I think most already knew.
Yeah.
Look, if 7's wrong, the whole thing is wrong.
Yeah. Well, thank you for being brave and letting me interview you. I really appreciate it.
No worries.
Thank you very much.
The evidence for controlled demolition is most striking in the case of World Trade Center Building 7. When I talk to people about the events of 9/11, most people I talk to are not even aware that a third building came down on the afternoon of 9/11.